Threats, unity agreements, and the future of the Syrian Druze. Houthi rebels in Yemen are threatening once again to attack ships destined for Israel. Meanwhile, Syrian Kurds and their defense forces are uniting with the interim federal government, while Israel is flying jets over Syria to send a message of support for the minority Druze population. Well, joining us with some insights is Alex Traiman. He's Jewish News Syndicate Jerusalem bureau chief. Alex, it's good to talk again. So these Houthis in Yemen are threatening to resume attacks, more drone strikes against Israel and her trade partners. How do you expect Israel to respond to that new threat?
Gary, thanks for having me. I believe that Israel will respond with force, as it has from time to time. I also believe that the United States may respond with force, and we've already seen recently that the United States has struck near the Hodeida port in Yemen, and Israel has struck many times in Yemen as well. You know, Yemen has done very little to harm Israeli infrastructure, but they've been a pesky nuisance and one that must be forced to stop.
Yeah, mostly to the shipping lanes there. And it's all about aid to Gaza, they say, the cutoff of food and electricity. So far, it doesn't seem like that tactic is working to get Hamas to release the remaining hostages. What must be done? The U.S. has already had a one-off, unfruitful direct meeting with Hamas.
Well, I think it was important that the United States new administration saw directly who they're dealing with Hamas, that Hamas was not willing to play ball and get these hostages released. They're not willing to let go of power in the Strip. They don't want an exit or an exile from the Strip. They're willing to stay in and fight as long as it takes, as long as they're still alive. I think that we're getting much closer to seeing a renewed Israeli military offensive inside the Gaza Strip if we don't see the fast return of the remaining hostages.
Well, I mean, President Trump has said repeatedly, all hell is going to break loose. That's a quote from him. So we haven't seen it yet. So is his patience wearing thin?
I think his patience is wearing thin. The question is who's more forceful, President Trump or Prime Minister Netanyahu? Really, it's Israel's war to fight, and Israel has been willing to do everything that it can, including negotiate with terrorists, even signing immoral agreements to allow prisoners, murderous prisoners, out of jail to get hostages back home. Netanyahu wants all the hostages back home. The Israeli people want them all back home, but at the same time, the only cards that the Hamas has to play with here are the hostages, and I think that the timing for Hamas is running out.
And in Syria, Alex, Israel is showing support for the Druze population there with jet flyovers. This after the recent slaughter of members of the Alawite minority in western Syria, and some are suggesting a separate state for the 2 million Syrian and Golan Druze population, and that may protect them. So what are your thoughts?
Well, Israel wants to make sure that this group, HTS, led by al-Jolani, who's backed by Turkey and became the new president of Syria, does not move down towards the south and pose a new threat directly to Israel. Now, what's interesting, as you mentioned, is that you have a large Druze population in southern Syria. You also have a Kurdish population that is really connected geographically to this Druze population. Both the Kurds and the Druze are aligned with Israel. In fact, Israel has a large population of Druze inside Israel that are loyal to Israel. Many of them serve in the military or the police here in Israel, and they've asked Israel for help, and Israel is standing up for the Druze brothers that are across the Syrian border and demonstrating that they will not let Turkey or an al-Qaeda affiliated group like HTS led by al-Jolani move down towards Israel in order to create a new ground for terrorism against the Jewish state.
And they have quite a militia there protecting themselves in places like Swaida and elsewhere. But let's talk about the Kurds, because in northern Syria, the Kurds have enjoyed autonomy. They're now joining forces with the new federal government. They signed a deal on that. What do you make of that move?
They're trying to protect their interests. You know, there's definitely an alliance of at least of sentiments between the Kurds and Israel, but the Kurds don't want to see what's now happened to the Alawites who are being murdered en masse by HTS, by al-Jolani's group. I think it's a move of self-preservation, and I think it's very important that people understand that in the Middle East, people are always looking to see who's the power broker, who's the strong horse, and they're doing things that they need to do to protect their own self-interests.
Well, I understand they're even going to be granted the right, which Assad didn't allow them to have their own language and use that in school and in writing and communications and so forth. Is that true?
I believe so.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to wait and see how that develops. We pray it doesn't go south for the Kurds, who are American allies and also allies of Israel. Alex Traiman of the Jewish News Syndicate. As always, Alex, we thank you for sharing your perspective.
Thanks for having me.